Hey, what's going on, Old Nation? It's CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. Of course, I am your host. Like I keep saying, we're in the midst of our spring positional breakdowns, transitioning over to the defensive side of the ball. My favorite side of the ball. We'll jump right into it. And first, we have the defensive line. But before we get started, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We're going to have a lot of information coming to you guys with spring practice forthcoming. So go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into it. Like I said, we're going to talk about the defensive line. And the first one I want to speak about, the first player I want to speak about, rather, is Daryl Jackson Jr., 6'5", 330-pounder, coming back for his senior year for FSU. Of course, you guys know he started last year aside Josh Farmer. There's a lot of hype within the defensive line, best defensive line in college football and all that type of deal. Now, Daryl did get off to a slow start, but if you look at the second half of the season. I know a lot of FSU fans pretty much checked out of the season at a certain point. But if you're a pain freak like myself and pretty much watch every game through and through, you notice that Daryl Jackson was playing some damn good ball, especially towards the tail end of the season. He's one of our better defensive players on the tail end of the season. Finished last year with 32 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. His best game came against his former team, the Miami Hurricanes, in which he had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. And as you guys know, the Hurricanes had a pretty damn good offensive line and kept Ken Ward clean for the majority of the season. But if you look at the games that Miami played last year, from an offensive standpoint, FSU pretty much gave those guys the most problems. And Daryl Jackson had a damn good game against a pretty good offensive line. What's the reason behind the slow start for Daryl Jackson? It could have been a multitude of things. You guys got to remember as well too. He missed damn near 18 months of football or so, maybe 2 years. I guess you could say 2 years technically when it comes to from a calendar standpoint. You guys remember the 2023 season. Prior to that, he ended up transferring to FSU from Miami, but ended up needing a waiver to be eligible due to, I think it was a second time transfer or third time transfer, whatever it may be, in regards to that rule at that point in time. Ended up getting waived later on, but Daryl Jackson kind of got caught in the crossfires of that and wasn't eligible to play for the 2023 season due to it. Fast forward to the 2024 season, like I said, that could be a reason why it was kind of a slow start to getting his footing. But Daryl Jackson, even though he is a senior for this upcoming year, hasn't played that much football, so to speak. So I think last year was very good for him. You build upon this season. You got to realize as well we're transitioning from a 4-3 rather to a 3-3-5 in regards to the defensive front. He's going to be mainly a nose tackle, being over the center. I think that's going to be better for him as well because he's an athletic dude for his size, real long arms and things like that. He should have the advantage against most centers that we play against for this upcoming season. And, we also transitioning from Odell Haggin to Terrence Potrose Knighton, who was a nose tackle himself in his own regard. So I do think Daryl Jackson is coming back for his senior year. Is going to be one of the better players for FSU. Is going to have a pretty damn good year. Like I said, if you pay attention last year, he was pretty good. All right, guys, I'm going to jump a little bit. I wanted to speak on Daryl Jackson first, but now we're going to get into some of the guys we acquired through the transfer portal. As you guys know, like I said, speaking of the defensive line, we lost a few on the defensive line. Josh Farmer for starters, Patrick Payton. We lost Josh Farmer to the NFL draft, and Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones Jr. We lost both of those guys to the transfer portal. So we had to replenish with some guys via the transfer portal naturally. A couple guys that we signed, James Williams, 6'5", 250-pounder from Nebraska. As you guys remember, he had 7. I spoke about him before. His nickname, I want to get into his nickname that he had at Nebraska. But this long story short, he transferred from Nebraska, had 7 sacks during his career at Nebraska. This past season, he led the nation. Well, this past season, based on his past season stats, he had a 21.5 pressure rate, which was the highest in the country for returning players. Shout out to my guy Clay Fink, 247 intern. He's very good with stats and things like that. 21.5% pressure rate for James Williams, which is the highest rated pressure rate for returning edge players coming back. He was more so a pass rush specialist on passing downs for Nebraska. Coming over to FSU, and he stated in his interviews that he wants to be more of a 4-down type of player. He has his chance now to get a little bigger with Coach Josh Storms. He's already familiar with the system that Tony White runs. Like I said, played in Nebraska, and he's very close with the new defensive line coach Potrose. So we're going to see what James Williams brings to the table. Athletic guy off the edge, relentless pursuit type of guy. Gives maximum effort, something we didn't see a lot last year from our edge rushers. So we'll see how it translates in spring practice for James Williams. Jason Jenkins, this is an interesting one as well. 6'6", 280 pounds, pounder transfer from Tennessee. Now, there is reports that he will be missing the majority of spring practice, and it could linger into fall camp in regards to an injury that he's nursing. So it's going to be, I guess there's not too much we could talk about as far as what he brings into the spring practice timeline. As long as he's healthy for the season, all that matters. But 6'6", 280 pound, he's going to be a defensive end in our new 3-3-5 system. It's going to be interesting to see what Jenkins brings to the table. A lot of athleticism, a lot of size, but it's a lot of untapped potential as well. Deontay McCray, 6'4", 280-pounder, defensive end from Western Kentucky, transferred, one of the more productive defensive ends in the transfer portal this past season. He's pretty much been, and he's familiar with the system as well, as Western Kentucky ran a 3-3-5 as well. So he's a three down lineman, defensive end, had 59 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks for Western Kentucky. I really like what he brings to the table, especially in regards to stopping the run. Real physical at the point of attack, something that, again, we really didn't have on the edge last year. Losing Jared Verse was kind of evident in regards to the physical presence that he played with at the defensive end position. So McCray is a physical type of player. He brings that type of grit to the position. So it's going to be interesting to see what he brings to the table, transitioning from Western Kentucky to FSU. Already familiar with the 3 down lineman front. Now just got to get down pat with Tony White's system and get coached up by Pot Roast. DeMonte Diggs, 6'5", 260-pound defensive end from Coastal Carolina, ended up transferring to Florida State. Had a lot of suitors as well within the transfer portal. 6'5", 260, like I said, had 34 tackles, 34 tackles, 5 sacks, and 6.5 tackles for loss during his career at Coastal Carolina. We're going to see how it plays out with him as well. You see a theme, right, in regards to the defensive lineman that we did bring in via the transfer portal. James Williams, 250. Jason Jenkins, he's 280 pounds. Deontay McCray, another 280-pounder. Diggs, 260. So you got to have size in regards to a 3-man front. We definitely brought that in the transfer portal in regards to the guys who brought in for the winter edition of the transfer portal. Transitioning back to some guys that's on campus, this is a very interesting one, and this is a guy that I'm very high on. That's Amari Williams. As you guys know, Amari Williams was a true freshman for FSU last year. He reclassified from the 2025 class to the 2024 cycle. 17-year-old kid ended up getting the FSU enrolled early and all that type of deal. And he was an athlete coming out, defensive end / tight end during his high school career on film. Coming in, I thought he would be better suited for the defensive end position based off just the type of impact you could have. But the FSU staff thought suited for last year to move him over to start him off at the tight end position. And he made some plays for FSU at the tight end position at a young age. Him and Landon Thomas made a lot of plays for some true freshmen. We ended up moving him over, transitioning him over to the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see how he transitions with this new system, new coaching, and things like that. He would probably be one of our stand-up edge rushers. I want to say it's called the Jack linebacker, if I'm not mistaken, within Tony White's defense. I'm very high on Amari Williams. He's a damn athletic kid. I think he's going to be a big-time playmaker for FSU. He was one of the better athletes in the country in regards to his recruiting cycle. We'll see how it plays out. But again, get bigger with Coach Storms, go to the defensive side of the ball, which in my opinion is better suited for Amari Williams. The sky's the limit for that kid. So we'll see how it transitions and just, I guess transition going from defensive end, tight end to the defensive side of the ball for this spring and learning the ins and outs of the playbook. Jaden Jones, 6'5", 240-pound defensive end, senior for FSU. You guys remember about 3 cycles ago, he was the number 1 JUCO defensive end in the country, but ended up tearing his ACL prior to coming to FSU during his last season at JUCO, which pretty much put him behind the 8 ball as far as rehab and things like that during his career at FSU. Long story short, it's been a rash of injuries and he's been hurt. We'll see if he could do anything going for his senior year. He has to make a statement, in my opinion, for spring practice just for playing time. But we'll see how it plays out. There has been reports that he has flashed during tour duty and he's kind of fully healthy due to from those nagging injuries over the last few years. That could be a good thing because the talent is definitely there. We'll see if it translates, get his confidence back going, and see what spring practice does for him. Tylen Coleman, speaking of JUCO guys, we ended up adding him within this recruiting cycle from the JUCO ranks. 6'4", 285 pounds. He was a top 10 JUCO player overall. Kid from Mississippi. If you watch his film, he's very physical. He's very violent. He attacks at the point of attack on film. If you have physical nature and you use your hands as a defensive lineman, you have violent hands, the rest could be coached up. So we'll see how it transitions for Tylen. I think he's going to end up being a 3-3, a defensive end within the 3-3-5 system. We'll see how it pans out, but I like him a lot. Like I said, was a top 10 JUCO overall player out of Mississippi. Daniel Lyons, 6'4", 295 pounder, going into his redshirt junior year at FSU, pretty much has been a career backup and rotational piece for FSU. This past season, he had 25 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. Real solid player. We'll see how it transitions coming from the 4-3 to the 3-3-5, like I keep stating, which is probably the obvious thing in regards to our defensive linemen, how they transition from the 4-man to the 3-man front. I think a 3-man front, a defensive end, may be better suited for Daniel Lyons and his skill set. We'll see how it plays out. There's going to be a lot of competition for those snaps within the 3-down linemen. Let's go to some defensive tackles, or nose tackles rather. And this is a kid I'm very excited for, a true freshman, Kevin Wynn. Standing 6'2", 320 pounds. He was a top 50 overall recruit for FSU. FSU ended up holding on to his commitment with late pushes from the University of South Carolina and the University of Georgia. Kid is from Georgia, dominated in the Army All-American Bowl. It's going to be interesting to see how he transitions, keep getting stronger, and how he transitions within the spring practice, going from high school to the college ranks. I think this kid, and I'm not a guy that a lot of that puts onus on true freshmen and things like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Wynn finds himself within the FSU rotation within his first year. KJ Sampson, another redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 306 pounds. He has to make a lot of plays in the spring practice. Pretty much, I'm not going to say it's put up or shut up, but it's time to, show what you could do and put that good tape out there for the coaches to see so he can vie for playing time as well. Aaron Hester, this is an interesting one. Standing at 6'2", 244 pounds, redshirt junior. He's been the guy that's been a rotational piece for FSU as well. Transitioning from 4'3" to 3'3'5", like I said, 6'2", 244 pounds. It's kind of like a position. He's in kind of no man's land from a size standpoint and the position that he plays. It's going to be interesting to see how the spring practice goes for Aaron Hester. He has to make a lot of plays, in my opinion. He could be a transfer portal candidate as well to end up leaving the program. We'll see how things transition and play out for Hester. Again, all you got to do is go out there and compete and let the chips fall chips fall how they may fall. But he could be a guy that ends up transferring out from FSU. Couple more guys I want to talk about. We're going to get focused on the younger guys a little bit. I know I kind of jumped ahead and spoke about Kevin Wynn as far as some true freshmen, but it's a few other true freshmen, some redshirt freshmen I want to touch on. As far as from the redshirt freshmen stand up, Jamori Flagg and Denaz White, two guys that will probably be respective defensive, nose guards in the defense. Flagg stands at 6'3", 316 pounds. Denaz 6'4", 336 pounds. I want to see him see those guys keep getting better, keep getting stronger in the weight room, and then, like I said, just keep getting better. I don't see them playing that much for FSU for this season, but again, that's what we have spring practice for. And these are a few of the freshmen that a few true freshmen that's on campus now that I want to watch out for. Like I said, the main thing for these true freshmen is you want to get on campus, get stronger, of course, by cold storms, get adjusted to the speed of the game, and go from there. Some guys catch on quicker than others. It's not a knock if they do. It's just different developmental stage for guys at certain positions. And we're talking about the trenches as well. So I want you guys to be aware of that and not try to put too much on these guys. But you got the twins. You got Daryl and Mandrell Desir, 6'4", 250 and 60 pounders, twins from Miami Northern. Those guys can play some football, 3-star recruits. We'll see how they transition coming to the college level. And then you have a couple late SEC flips that FSU did. Shout out to the new staff in regards to the late recruiting efforts they did prior to signing day. You had, of course, LaJesse Harold and Tylen Lee. LaJesse Harold's a kid from Tampa, Florida, 6'5", 215 pounds. He was committed to LSU, ended up flipping from LSU to FSU in early signing day. And of course, you have Tylen Lee. He was named a 5-star on the on-field recruiting services, 6'4", 245 pounds from Pace, Florida. FSU ended up flipping him from Ole Miss. So big-time playmakers for those guys. We'll see how they transition coming from the high school ranks to the college ranks. Again, don't put too much on these guys. We'll see how it plays out. But it's going to be exciting new look for the defensive line from the coaching standpoint and the player standpoint. This is the first year that FSU is going to be without long-time great defensive line coach Odell Haggin. You have Terrence Potrose Knighton, and of course, like I said, a plethora of new guys on the defensive line in a new system in the 3-3-5, going from the 4-3. So we'll see how it transitions with Coach Tony White. Make sure you guys lock in with DoakTalk. We have all the updates coming for you for spring practice. Like and subscribe. Go Noles.